How much of an advantage do you think it is to be based in Australia?
It was definitely a huge advantage for us in the early days. I don't think we necessarily thought about it a huge amount. It was just where we needed to be because that's where we're from. That's our home. Um, but we've been really keen to keep Australia our home. We've got a ton of international offices now, but the bulk of our staff are in Australia. We've got close to 2,000 there now. And it has been a great home to us and a very supportive one. The investor ecosystem has really flourished over the last 10 years. People's understanding of startups and the power of software that can be global has really grown over the last 10 years. And we haven't faced too many headwinds from being in Australia. Very early on, I think our very first investment round, there's a little bit of friction where we needed to get a few American investors on before the local Australian scene would support us. But after we'd done that, and then we approached our second and our third and our fourth rounds, people could obviously see that we were delivering value from here and there were no real impediments to our growth. So it's mainly been a really good story for us to be from Australia. And in a talent sense, it's actually been way less competitive than somewhere like San Francisco, where you hear stories of people joining a company for a year, getting their stocks vesting, and then leaving after that to go for the next big thing. At Canva, loyalty is a huge thing, and we've got quite a few people who joined us 10 years ago who are still at the company and enjoying having a massive impact.
Well, and I'm sure a massive income, I hope, from your own growth as well. But I'm curious with the Asia Pacific market. We hear a lot about the politics with China, for example, but that's also a huge center of innovation. I don't know if you want to talk about that as an advantage, but when you look at it as a product officer, what are you seeing in terms of both the appetite in the Asia Pacific market and where you're seeing some innovation there?
Yeah, Asia Pacific is huge for us, and some of our biggest growth areas are there. Indonesia is a huge market in its own right. I think what's popular, I think they've got close to 300 million people in Indonesia now. And it's also one of the top 5 markets for Canva. We see amazing growth there, but it's also a really different market, which took us a little by surprise when we started internationalizing about 7 years ago. The different ways that people use products all around the world, the different types of technology they use it on, and particularly for us, the different types of content they need to communicate visually properly. So someone in Indonesia, the types of photos they use, the illustrations they want, the themes of the designs that they want to create, and the templates that they need to do that are all very different. And
Can you give us
we
an
have focused.
example? I mean, what would somebody, I'm an Indonesian Canva user, how am I using it differently than somebody, say, in New York?
So in the US, we tend to see a lot of people using Canva on desktops and laptops. In places like Brazil, Indonesia, it's a huge mobile market, and it's particularly a huge Android market. In terms of content, Ramadan is a huge event in Indonesia, and it affects a lot of their culture throughout the year. So we have to create, great content for Ramadan that people can use when they're doing promotions for their business, etc. In terms of when you think of photography, I mean, obviously Indonesian people look very different to people from the United States. They have different religions, they have different customs and cultures, and the content in the Canva needs to reflect that, because ultimately, when you're creating visuals, you're trying to communicate most often to people that are like you, that are doing the same things, that are living in the same societies. And we really try to make Canva a great home for everyone, no matter where they are in the world. It's quite amazing, actually, that when you talk to a lot of people who are Canva fans, they don't necessarily realize where it's built. So I actually went to Indonesia a couple of weeks ago, and the very first thing I heard when I landed into the country was, "Oh my God, do you work at Canva? I love it." And this was actually from the customs border person who was checking me in as I was showing them my passport. Yeah, it was amazing. He actually asked for some Canva swag, which I didn't think was a good idea because it kind of looked like I was bribing my way into the country. The customs Yes, they said next time you come in, bring a Canva t-shirt for me. But yeah, it's this real sense of home, and wherever you're using Canva, it feels like a product that is native to you. And we've focused on that huge amount over the last 7 years and made sure that Canva is in over 100 languages. We're used in 190 different countries, and that international growth has been a massive part of Canva's story.
And China is a market that's been open to you as well. I'm just always curious, having worked there myself.
Yeah, China's a growing market for us. We actually have an office there. We actually have 2 offices there. We've got one in Beijing and one in Wuhan. And we found it actually really necessary to have offices specifically in China because it is quite a different market. You need to tackle technology and infrastructure in a different way. Again, content and internationalization needs to be tackled in a very China-specific way. So we've actually needed to divert quite a few resources to growing in China just because it is such a different and very unique market.